Hey, thanks for joining us for another week of moving to Georgia. I'm Sarah Maslowski, here to answer all your questions, tell you the ins and outs of what's happening in the real estate market, and helping you make a move right here to Georgia and help you navigate what is going on. So, this is what I'm here for. If you have questions, go ahead and let me know in the comments. We're going to make sure that we get to them during the live stream. So, um, here in Georgia, it's funny. I had a client ask me that's here in town looking for a house, and she said, "Sarah, she's like, is spring like already here?" And I thought that comment was funny because we are officially in the season where you have the heater on in your car in the morning and then the air conditioning on in your car in the afternoon. Wild temperature swings, like scraping frost off my windshield this morning and then, like shutting off layers of clothes and turning on my AC, driving home because it's getting like in the mid 60s here in the afternoons. And 37 degrees in the morning. So big swings in temperature I'm curious, is it like that where you're at, or is this abnormally warm? Let me know in the comments. Speaking of that, I would love to know where you're watching us from, where you're joining. Thank you for being here. Since the last time we've had a chance to spend some time together, we do this not every single Wednesday, every other Wednesday now. We're going live on this is YouTube. I have TikTok on the brain because I was going to tell y'all, if you haven't followed me on TikTok, I'm over there moving to Georgia, and I made a video this past week about things to expect whenever you're moving to Georgia. And one of the things that I highlighted was the low property taxes that a lot of people are surprised or happy about whenever they move here to Georgia. Whew, the local people, y'all, just blew me up on TikTok saying, no, we do not have low property taxes. And where in Georgia am I talking about? And I had to remind them that, everything is relative from where you're coming from. So a lot of the clients that I work with are moving from, California and New Jersey and New York. So, we have a lot of people who think the property taxes here are very low compared to where they are coming from. And no one likes to pay property taxes. We're always going to think that it's too much, right? Trisha is joining us here from Gainesville. Thank you. I'm curious, Trisha, did you recently move here, or are you a local and you've been here for a long time? But she does know what I mean because she's experiencing that right now. Yeah, it's bipolar, the weather is, and we have to like dress in layers so that you don't overheat by the end of the day and you can take off some of those layers and get cool. Yeah, so locals were roasting me over on TikTok about my comment about low property taxes. So speaking of low property taxes, on average, you can expect to pay about 1% of your purchase price in property taxes. And a lot of places in the country are like 1.6, 1.8. So that's a wild difference. And Georgia's kind of like in the middle of the pack when it comes to property taxes. So we're not the highest and we're definitely not the cheapest whenever you look at a state as a whole. Okay, Trisha's been here for 19 years. Thank you for joining. Dean is moving from Colorado and asking about lower taxes for seniors. And yes, this is a great perk that Georgia has, but it is very county specific. So you want to make sure that you're researching the county that you're planning on moving to, or if you're comparing a couple of different areas, that's definitely something to take a look at. So here in Hall County and Forsyth County, so Gainesville, Cumming area, they have really generous tax breaks for seniors when it comes to your school portion of the property tax bill. So here in Georgia, it's kind of broken out to where you pay a large majority of your portion of your property tax bill is what you're paying for school taxes, or I guess money that goes towards the schools. Once you reach a certain age, it varies by county. Here in Hall County, once you reach 70, they completely take away the school portion of the property tax bill. And oftentimes it cuts it more than half. So it's a huge significant savings. Some counties like Jackson County, which is where some parts of Brazelton are, they don't offer any senior homestead exemptions. So that's, a big factor to kind of weigh when you're looking at two houses that are within 10, 15 minutes of each other that can help sway that. I do not know Canton off the top of my head. beautiful place. Definitely a great place to live. And we can connect and I can give you some more information on those places. So that is definitely something that is a huge benefit here in Georgia that you can look into. And again, it's different by county. So you can't expect that across the board, but a lot of counties do have it. And so, yeah, huge tax savings for you. Um, when I was talking to another client that relocated from New Jersey, he told me that one of the most surprising things to him was not necessarily the property taxes and things like that, but how much like energy cost and how much he was saving on his monthly bills for things. He said what he would pay $500-$600 to heat his home in New Jersey during the winter between the gas bill and electricity. And here in Georgia, it's like 125. And so for him, that was a huge significant benefit that he didn't realize that he was going to save on. And it's not really something that I've thought of to talk about a whole lot because I've lived here my whole life. Um, Lone One says, you'd imagine that taxes are lower in South Georgia. Yes. So they're a little bit lower down there. And you got to keep in mind that the way that property taxes are done here is it's based on a millage rate, which is a formula factor that's based on what the assessed value of your home is. So homes are definitely, not as expensive down in South Georgia as they are up here in the North Metro Atlanta area. So naturally, not only sometimes do the counties just charge less, but your assessed value is going to be less as well. So speaking of assessed value and property taxes, if you're watching me and you bought a home here in Georgia last year and you didn't use me, because I have reminded those that worked with me, you need to file for your homestead exemption. So everyone in Georgia, if you're a homeowner, you have to file this one time with your county and it stays on the property for as long as you own it, but it gives you a small break in some of your property taxes that you have to pay. So usually it's going to save you a couple $100 a year. And what you're filing for is your homestead exemption. So the state's going to give you a break on your property taxes because you yourself live in that home. So this doesn't count for vacation homes, and it does not count if you're an investor or if you're renting out the house. So you personally have to live in it. But it's a huge, thing that's going to save you a couple $100 every single year, and you only have to do it one time. Usually the filing deadline is April 15th for almost all the counties. So if you need help with that, reach out and I can help send you some helpful links that will help you file that. Most counties will let you do it online. And if you've never done it and you live here in Georgia and you're not sure, definitely call the county tax commissioner and check in with them and ask them if you have it. Again, you only have to do it one time. So once you do it, it's done. Awesome. So let's see here. Lone One Trend says, roast them back, go get them on TikTok. Yes, I did make a follow-up TikTok. I had to learn how to do that reply to comment thing with the video and, share with them. It's all about perspective. Nobody likes paying property taxes. All right. So the big headline for this week is that, unfortunately, the Fed announced at the January meeting that they had planned to do several rate cuts throughout the year. And the one that they thought was upcoming at their next meeting in March, they said they're not going to do that. And they based that off of inflation data and jobs data. So inflation kind of held steady where, they were getting that down back to where they once saw it, but it was more so the jobs numbers. I guess a lot of jobs were added or not enough people lost their jobs and all of this. None of this makes sense, right? It does and it doesn't. And it's bad that they're waiting to make interest rates more affordable based on how many people lose their job or keep their job. Seems counterintuitive, but it all makes sense, right? Not really, but to someone it does. So let's take a look at this article and talk about it. Let's see here. All right, so this article in the AP, the headline was Jerome Powell, the chairman of the Federal Reserve, that he's on track to cut rates, though likely not for months. So we were expecting that we were going to have Fed rate cuts in March, and that was instantly going to have an impact on mortgage rates. And we were also expecting several more rate cuts throughout the year. The March one's not happening, but they signaled that they're still expecting rate cuts to happen throughout the year. So They said it's nearing it, evidence that it's grown confident, they're close to fully taming inflation, but they no longer say that it's their policy that they're still no longer does its I don't why can't I read, y'all? No longer does its policy statement say it's still considering further rate hikes. So they said that the first rate cut is likely still months away. Um, their statement said that they don't think it would be time to cut rates until it has gained greater confidence that inflation is moving substantially to their 2% target. So one thing that you need to know is that the Fed interest rate that we're talking about, they're not talking directly about mortgage rates, but the two things are tied together. So typically, whenever the Fed raises the federal interest rate, you'll see mortgage rates do the same. Same thing whenever they cut the Fed interest rate, mortgage rates also follow suit. Um, so the thing that stinks about this for you as a potential buyer is that, you know, you're not going to save money on your mortgage rate anytime soon. And I say anytime soon, we're probably looking at, the June, July timeframe for when we're going to start seeing a significant impact in mortgage rates going down. And when I say significant, I'm not talking about getting anywhere back in the threes or fours or even fives that we experienced in 2020 and 2021, but getting back down into the low sixes. And right now, things are in the mid to high sixes for a lot of buyers. Um, Now, if I'm in your shoes, here's what I'm not doing. So I'm taking this with a grain of salt. Obviously, we thought we were going to see interest rates go down a little bit this spring, and it's good and bad news, right? So the good news is that I think this news might tamper somewhat of people that have been on the fence wanting to buy a house and or have been waiting for a sign of good news. They might take this information and say, "Oh, we're going to wait a little bit longer." So maybe there might be slightly less competition this spring for a house, um, and the opportunity that you have as a buyer this spring. I would still encourage you to still go out there and get your house, get it under contract, get moved into it. You can always refinance your loan into those lower rates later. And you're going to want to wait until the interest rate comes down like a full percentage point, which all indicators are that we are going to see that next year in 2025. Can you believe that we have to say 2025? That's like, sounds so foreign. Um, so you're going to refinance. And here's one thing for certain, you are going to pay more for a house the longer you wait. And the longer you wait, whenever they really start cutting those interest rates, we are just going to continue to see more people take that as a good sign. It's just going to increase competition. And what money that you may save on your interest rate for your monthly payments, you're probably going to negate it or wipe it all out by paying more for that house because there's more competition. So that is definitely something that you need to know. All right. Lone One says, I wonder is ATL having more people move in than out? Because I imagine the prices reflect that. So good question. We are seeing a lot of people leave kind of like the inner perimeter of Atlanta. And so if you look at the Zillow data, you'll see a lot of people fleeing the inner city and kind of moving to the suburbs. 98% of the clients that I work with, whenever they call to make a move, they are talking about moving to the suburbs, not necessarily, inner city Atlanta or inner perimeter of Atlanta. Things are much more expensive down there. Schools are a little bit all over the place. And also, you have crime that's all over the place down there. So, I often have clients ask me, like, we want to be somewhere safe and with good schools. Um, and if you look at home prices and how much home prices have appreciated in the metro Atlanta suburbs, like that's the data indicator that you need to be looking at to answer those questions. And, I always tell people that, um, technically as a real estate agent, I'm not supposed to say, yes, this is a safe area. No, this is not. I can't steer you in any direction. But what I can tell you is that all of this development, all this home price appreciation, all of these new construction neighborhoods would not be being developed in areas where business owners and developers that are pouring tens of millions of dollars into these projects, they're not going to put that in an area where it's not checking off those boxes. So keep that in mind whenever you are looking for an area to live. That is super, super important. So as we're talking here today, if you have any questions, please let me know in the comments, or if you have any thoughts or feelings about what we're talking about. I'd love to know questions about the housing market, or if you're thinking about making a move here to the Metro Atlanta area, I would love to answer your questions while we're spending some time together today. So one of the things that I have found interesting is, and one of the things that we've been talking about, I think we talked about this 2 weeks ago when we were together, is that the market is picking up, and I'm expecting that we're going to still see a very busy spring, and even busier than what we saw in the last half of last year, because so many people have been wanting to buy a house. Spring is always typically very busy, but then when you pile that on top of some pent up demand, there's going to be some competition. So one of the things that we have seen is that homes are spending less time on the market. So we're definitely seeing this here in the Metro Atlanta area. And this is stats from realtor.com that's looking at the housing market as a whole all throughout the country. And we always have to talk about, when we're talking about data, to kind of ignore 2021 and 2022, because those were extraordinary circumstances with historically amazingly low interest rates, right? So we're going to kind of take those out. But if you look at last year and the first month of this year, homes are spending less time on the market than what they were prior to the pandemic. And this is really important. This is why home prices are still holding so steady. Home values are still continuing to rise. It's just because not enough people are selling their house. People are holding on to it. They're saying, I'm just going to stay put and I'm not going to move. Or it's not important for me to have a bigger yard or into another neighborhood. I'm going to stay. It's not worth it. And so this is why we're seeing less days on the market. And in turn, that means for you more competition, and that you have to act a little bit more quickly. And you always want to look at the data in the local area that you're thinking about making a move to, because this is not one size fits all data. So there's definitely some parts of the country where homes are staying on the market a lot longer than this, and things aren't going in that direction. But I can tell you that here in the Metro Atlanta area, you can expect to see this. In fact, in most areas are experiencing, 20 to 30 days on the market. Some days, some markets even less. So it really, really depends. So that is important to know. We have a good question from Alan here, wondering if you can explain the regular homestead exemption and how to calculate the savings. For example, I moved to Gwinnett County last summer. Yes. So yes and no. On Gwinnett County's tax commissioner's website, they have something that explains how they do their homestead exemption. Typically, what it's going to do is it will take off $2,000 to $4,000 worth of value of your assessed value. Sometimes it's more. Some counties do $10,000. So let's say that they've assessed your home at $350,000 of value. That homestead exemption will knock that down to $340,000. So they're only going to tax you on that $340,000 versus the $350,000. So it just takes it off the top of the value. Now, a lot of times I have clients get scared or nervous, or when they're in the buying and they go look up someone's property taxes and they say, oh, I saw, this home is listed for sale for, let's say, $500,000, but on the tax website, it says that the home only has an assessed value of $400,000. Am I overpaying for the house? And I also have people, homeowners, that think that, they need to contact the county to correct that. You do not want to do that at all. So having the county think that your home is worth less than what you've actually paid for it or what it actually is a great thing, because that is the number that they tax you on. So we always want that number to be as low as possible. So don't call and tell them that. And also, like, if you're doing improvements to your house, like basement and stuff like that, if you don't have to pull a permit, don't. Because as soon as you pull a permit, sometimes it's optional if you want to have a permit or not, but as soon as you pull that permit, that signals to the county that you're making improvements on your home. Therefore, your property taxes and your assessed value is going to go up. So that something that you want to keep in mind for sure. Trisha, do you see many homes for sale not in a subdivision? Everywhere I look, there is a subdivision popping up. Can I be hopeful? So, yes, there are some good options outside of subdivisions, but you're right. There's definitely going to be more homes for sale in a subdivision than not. We do have the ability to in the MLS system, kind of search for homes not in a neighborhood. So that can be something that I can help set up for and help making that a little bit easier for you to find. Um, yes, there are subdivisions and developments popping up every which way you look. And another thing, and I want to know if this is happening in your area, there are storage facilities like, like you rent the facility by month and you can store whatever in there. Storage facilities popping up everywhere that I drive for something that's going in. If it's not a retail development center, it's a storage facility. They're everywhere. And it's just so shocking to me because, it's not like we're making houses any smaller. If anything, our houses continue to get bigger and bigger. And there's lots of apartment complexes going up and around too. But it's just so wild to me that how can you have that much stuff that you need to pay monthly rent to go store it? And I hope I'm not hurting anybody's feelings here, but probably what you pay for a year to store your stuff, the stuff probably isn't even worth that much. Maybe you might have some sentimental feelings around the stuff, but it's just wild to me. And when I say they're everywhere, like there is a block that I drive by, like a half-mile block stretch of road, where there's two storage facilities being built right now, owned by two separate companies. And they're both going to have like hundreds of bays, what are they called, that you can rent. It's just amazing to me that there's that much of a demand that they can fill that. And it's not just here in Hall County, it's all across the metro Atlanta area. So they're everywhere. Is that happening where you live? Let me know, because I'm just curious if it's a Georgia thing. And then part of me is wondering, like, is this a tax break incentive that businesses are getting for putting these up? I don't know. It just seems suspicious. They're everywhere. Yeah. So let me know if you have any questions or comments about making a move to Georgia. Um, Now, depending upon where you get your news, or not where you get your news, but there's just so much confusing information out there. You can see one headline that says, now is the time to buy. And then you can see another headline that says, no, it's a terrible time to buy. Keep renting or don't make the move. And it can be very confusing figuring out what to do. But one of the questions that I often get asked or people tell me is that they're just going to wait for home prices to settle down or for the market to crash. I've had people tell me that since 2019. And here we are, 5 years later almost. And those people are still waiting. So I would always ask you how long you're willing to wait. But we can always go look at the data to kind of give us, like, what are the indicators that would tell us that a market is likely going to crash? And one of the things that we can always look at is foreclosure data. So what this chart shows is looking at historic foreclosure data. And what we can see is that in 2023, 357,000 homes went into foreclosure. And if we made a headline of 2021 to 2023, we could make a headline that states home foreclosures have doubled in the past 2 years. That would be accurate. They have doubled in the past 2 years. And that would seem like an alarming headline. And yet, historically, that is still that's still lower than the past, 15 years? Another thing that you would want to keep in mind with this is that in 2020 and 2021, there were federal protections and guidelines around foreclosures. They had like a moratorium on foreclosures because of the pandemic. So they couldn't even really start foreclosing on people. Obviously, there was some exceptions to the rule there because there were foreclosures in 2020 and 2021, but they are still very low compared to years past. Now, obviously, the market did crash in 2007, 2008. Thus, you see the rise in foreclosures during that time period. But historically, we are still really low. So keep this in mind. This is an indicator that people have incredible equity in their homes right now. And a lot of them are just able to find a way out of that by selling and, not having their home foreclosed on. Uh, John states that we just had a new storage center go up a few minutes from us. Hello from Western Washington State. Awesome. Well, thank you for joining me. And then Dean says they are not seeing storage places, but no, but oh, they are full. Okay. That's just, yeah, I really need to do a deep dive in this. I'll have to like search on TikTok. If you ever want to go down a rabbit hole, I've understood that like TikTok is the place to go, and there's people with all different types of information sharing it on there with all different topics. So I'm going to research this and I'm going to report back and let y'all know why there are so many storage places going up. It's just crazy. Because I get excited. I'm like, oh, new restaurant, new shopping. And then it's like, storage? Do we really need more storage? Obviously we do. Okay. What other questions do y'all have about making a move here to Georgia? I am here to help answer those questions, talk you through it, or, if you have a comment, please let me know. So another thing that I found is, here's a great headline that says, pending home sales post biggest jump since 2020 as mortgage rates fall. So keep in mind that mortgage rates back in October of 2023 got up to 8%. So we have seen a decline in mortgage interest rates. Thank goodness, right? To low sevens, high sixes. And we have seen a huge jump in homes that people have purchased. Now, the key factor to this, though, is that it says pending home sales rose 8.3% in December from the previous month, according to the National Association of Realtors. So that's great news. And we still don't have enough homes for sale. So I think that we probably would have seen more homes go under contract had there been more homes for sale. And this is something that we are struggling with here in the Metro Atlanta area, is that there's, if you have a certain set of criteria and you want to be within a specific area, instead of having 20 potential options that fit what you're looking for, you're likely going to have like 12. And so you're just not going to have as many options as what we are used to having in the market, because people don't want to put their home up for sale. So keep that in mind as you are thinking about making a move. All right. Lone One said, don't let TikTok get me. It has already gotten me. I've been down the rabbit hole and I'm addicted to it now. And it's not just, for those of you that are not on it, it's not just, dancing kids and songs. There's people with like really great informative videos on there. You can get on bread making TikTok and they can teach how to make some homemade bread. I've recently picked up the great hobby of needle pointing, which makes me sound like a grandma, but it's so relaxing and fun for me to do at night. And it actually keeps me off of being on TikTok. So win-win. And hopefully I'm going to be able to connect with some more people that are thinking about making the move to Georgia over there on TikTok with my own content. All right. Things are starting to heat up here in the Metro Atlanta area. So I urge you that if you're thinking about making a move even later this spring or this summer to the Metro Atlanta area, now is the time that you need to be reaching out to a trusted real estate agent that you want to work with. And hopefully that is me, because I'd love to work with you. But the reason why timing is so important is oftentimes I have clients moving from out of state and they're waiting for their school year to get out where they live. And yet they want to move here, though, in time for their kids to start school. But what they don't realize is that your school year may end in mid to late June. Well, school here starts at the very beginning of August. So that only leaves us like a very narrow window of time. Oftentimes, too, I'm working with clients that need to sell their house in order to move here. And there is nothing better than going ahead and kind of strategizing to make this an easy process and putting the puzzle pieces together to help make it less stressful for you. So definitely want to reach out and have that conversation and help strategize sooner rather than later. Dean says that he's going to call me soon. I'm hoping our house in Colorado will sell fast. Don't want to listen until we find a house in Canton. What happens if my house doesn't sell here and I have a contract on a house? This is the perfect question of why we need to go ahead and talk, because we can kind of talk through some different scenarios of how that can work out. So part of that conversation would be, Dean, that I would want to, if you don't have a great agent in Colorado, I could help connect you with one. But if you already have a great agent that you want to work with, I would like to have a conversation with them to get the local information on how quickly they're expecting homes to sell. A lot of it also has to do with the price point that you're looking in and what type of house we're trying to identify here in Canton. So depending upon that and depending upon how competitive it is, I've done a lot of talking today. I taught a class earlier to some other agents and I've talked all day long. So hence me stuttering a lot. Um, but depending upon what we're buying here in Canton, that might be a situation where getting a contingency to sell may be difficult or it may be easy. But hopefully, if the market is competitive in Colorado, or it's favorable to a seller, my best advice would be that we would want to create a situation where you have either a longer close date on your home sale there in Colorado, or you've negotiated a lease back or temporary occupancy where you can stay in that house after closing for 30 days. Just throwing that out there. Now, you're only going to be able to do that though if it's a favorable negotiating position for you as a seller. And that would then give us more runway to play with of getting you from Colorado to here and identifying the right house, with your house being kind of like a sure bet there in Colorado. So lots of different ways that we can work through this and different potential strategies. And so let's go ahead and connect. My phone number and contact information is directly below this video, but it does sound like now would be a great time for us to do that and help put a really good plan in place. Because the worst thing is that we don't want anyone to ever be homeless or stuck paying two mortgages that they're not comfortable with, or putting you in a financial bind or a situation where a lot of money is at risk. So it is important to have those conversations, and there are, safety nets that we can put in place to help protect you. Great question. John says, when looking at schools in Gwinnett County, one area has a high school rated a 4 on great schools, but there are schools with 7 or 9, 10 to 15 minutes north. Should I factor that in for future resale? Yes, I would. So I like to say that as a former teacher, I worked at a school that only had a 5 or a 6 rating on greatschools.org here in the Gainesville area, and yet it was a fantastic school. So locals may look at that a little bit differently than some people from out of state or moving to a new area, and they're only looking at greatschools.org. So I give the speech a lot in my videos is, yes, look at greatschools.org, but then also reach out locally to parents and Facebook groups and stuff like that and get the parents' anecdotal feedback, because those scores don't always reflect the true representation of the teachers or the kids' performance. So often we have a lot of kids with a lot of income disparities between the schools or the student population of the school. And so a lot of times, students from a lower income background, or a migrant background, they often don't perform very well on school tests that state tests that those scores are adapted from. And so if you dig a little bit deeper, sometimes you can pull some of that out of there of why it's scoring lower. But yes, overall, people are going to look at that. And you can also get the school's reputation locally in those local Facebook groups. And I'm happy to, give you a little bit more insight into that. But I would, consider that. Oftentimes, John, you're going to find that you're going to get a little bit also probably better house for your money, 10 to 15 minutes north, probably from that area that you're looking at. The downside, though, is that you're going to be 10 to 15 minutes further up north. And so if you're commuting down into Atlanta or have to go to the airport quite a bit, that's, going to add another 20 minutes onto your commute. I was a special education teacher. So I worked with, I co-taught, and I worked with kids that had general learning disabilities. So I worked in the regular classroom with students that were taking, regular normal classes. And my job in the classroom was to help facilitate what the teacher was teaching and make it a little bit easier for all the students, for everyone, not only, the students that had general learning disabilities. So I've worked with every grade levels from pre-K all the way up to high school. And high school by far was my favorite because you could joke around, make jokes and they get it, right? Um, I remember a funny story. A kid at the elementary school level, another teacher was getting very frustrated with this kid. And he was a kid that had a learning disability. And um, not that that matters because another kid probably would have said the same thing. But the teacher was getting frustrated and she said, I'm tired of this. I'm sick of playing games with you. I'm not playing games anymore. And he looked around and he was like, I don't see any games. Where's the games? He took it like very literally, like he was thinking that we were actually playing games. I thought that was very, very funny. But once kids get to high school, they usually can get sarcasm and jokes and stuff like that. So that's a lot of the reasons why I enjoyed teaching. I do not miss teaching. And I originally did not go to school for teaching. So I graduated with a degree in marketing, and I graduated at the height of the recession, so 2007, 2008 from college, and got laid off from my first two marketing jobs down in South Georgia, tiny, tiny town. So the job prospects weren't that great. So at the time, there's a teacher shortage, still a teacher shortage. They would hire you to teach with a 4-year degree, and then you had so many years to convert that into like a traditional license. So that's what I did. And we moved around quite a bit for my husband's job. And one of the great things is that whenever I moved here up to Gainesville area and I started teaching, I was actually at Johnson High School. So you're local here, Trisha. And I was surrounded by amazing teachers, and they really, really deeply cared about their job. And I found that it just wasn't bringing me the same enjoyment and same passion that I was with other teachers. And it made me realize, like, I need to be doing something different. So this has led me to real estate, and I have not looked back. So I definitely found my calling and still feel like I get the opportunity to teach with real estate because let me tell you, uh, you can buy a house, but most people only do this every 5, 10, sometimes 15 years. And you forget about what the home buying process is like or the home selling process. So I get to incorporate, a lot of the helpingness that I enjoyed about teaching in real estate. So still get that satisfaction. All right. What questions do y'all have about making a move here to Georgia? I would love to hear those. Or if you just have a question about the general housing market, I'd love to know what you're thinking. I saw an article, I don't think I have it pulled up, but it just said that home buyer sentiment was growing and that home buyers were less pessimistic about the housing market or their overall finances. Job market than what they have been in the previous years. So, that's something that I'm curious. Are you feeling more comfortable if you've been kind of on the fence about maybe buying a house, or do you still see yourself waiting a while to make a purchase or make a move? Definitely let me know. I'm just curious to see how y'all are feeling out there about things. One thing that I know for certain is that a lot of people are starting that plan for spring and summer because I'm starting to get a lot more reach outs over the past week than what I've experienced over the past couple of weeks and through, you know, uh, Christmas and New Year's, which is a little bit typical given the time period, but I can already tell like, oh, we're going to be in for a busy year in real estate. And I'm hearing that from my real estate friends across the country and also across the Metro Atlanta area too, that they are expecting or seeing things that have been, busy. Things are picking up. We're starting to see that. What city has the least amount of HOAs? So I think the more rural you go, the more small of a town you go, the less options there are for HOAs. And the reason that we see that is that typically you see HOAs in communities where you have big neighborhoods that are being developed, and or those areas also attract the bigger builders that are building 200 plus home neighborhoods. And, thus most home buyers want an HOA. So you'll see less HOA homes in smaller towns. So I would say a lot more so in South Georgia, kind of like Macon and below, even just south of Atlanta, like an hour south of Atlanta in between, you know, Peachtree City and Macon. You're going to see some towns in there that will have a lot of options without HOAs. Now, older neighborhoods here in the Metro Atlanta area, there are a lot of older options that don't have HOAs. And so that's an option as well, but then you're still kind of like in a neighborhood. So if you're looking not to be in a neighborhood, obviously there's not going to be an HOA, but you're going to have more of those options in the rural areas. Trisha said, hubby and I are working on our debt to raise our credit score, so it may be a few months. Oh, this is a great segue. So one thing to know is another reason why it's so helpful to talk sooner rather than later is I work with fantastic lenders, and both of the lenders will help you look at your credit score and can give you, from a lender's perspective, of what you can do over the next couple of months or make small, tiny tweaks or changes with your payments and things like that of what you're doing on the back end to make a significant impact on your credit. And they do not charge any fees for this. And so you should never pay for like credit services or anything, credit repair. Contact me. I'll put you in contact with some great people that can do that service for you at no charge. And oftentimes I meet with clients, we're working on things a little bit early and they have good credit, but if we could get their credit score like up 10 points, it would have significant savings on their mortgage interest rate. So, meeting with a lender sooner rather than later helps with them because they can give the advice of, okay, over the next 2 months, do these next things, and it's going to save you a lot of money on your mortgage interest rate that you're charged. So, good point. So if you'd like my contact, let me know, or my connections rather, let me know, and I'll put you in contact with them, but they're fantastic. Yeah, but what's interesting is that over the past year, what used to be considered a really good interest rate or really good credit score rather for mortgage interest rates, they kind of like raise the bar a little bit. So there's a big significant jump or savings that you get by improving your credit just a little bit more. And so that's why I'm all about saving money, right? Because who wants to pay more money for anything? I went to Taco Bell the other day and I love Taco Bell Mexican pizza. And all I ordered was a Mexican pizza and a Coke. Unfortunately, it was Pepsi because they only sell Pepsi at Taco Bell. But I ordered that and y'all, it was $10. You used to could buy like all the things at Taco Bell for $10. That shocked me. I'm curious if you like Taco Bell, if you like Mexican pizzas, they're like my favorite. Yeah. All right. Thank you everyone for joining me tonight. If you haven't already liked and subscribed to my channel, please make sure you do that. It helps me and it helps me reach more people just like you. Oh, hang on. Cinnabon. Do you mean the cinnamon twist? I think that's what you mean at Taco Bell, because those are good. I also have to, rein myself in on those, but those are really good too. I think that's what you mean. The cinnamon twist, the little crunchy churro like things with the cinnamon sugar. They're so good. Oh, order off the app. Sometimes it's cheaper. Okay. Teaching me things. I'll have to go download that app. But yeah, thank y'all for joining me. So if you haven't liked or subscribed, please do that. And if you're thinking about making a move, now's the perfect time to reach out to me. My contact information is below this video. And we have great videos that come to you out every Monday now. We changed our posting date for you. So every single Monday, you can expect a brand new video from us educating you about the Metro Atlanta area and the market, neighborhoods, everything you need to know. And if there's a video topic that you want to know about, let me know in the comments and we'll definitely make sure to get a video made on that area for you. And then, of course, we're here the first and third Wednesday of every single month answering your questions. So thank you so much for joining me tonight. And I look forward to connecting with you and seeing you next time. See y'all next. I always want to say next week, because last year we did them every week, but see y'all in a little while. Bye.